Welcome to Sportishness, everyone. We are now in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. How freaking exciting is that?
It is pretty exciting. So that's playoffs +2.
+2, yes. Yes.
It's kind of like, when you lift off, T plus one.
Pre-post retro, some, I don't know.
We are pre-post +2 and counting?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's talk for a minute about last week real quick.
Well, on my end, there were no surprises. I felt the teams that I thought had the best chance to advance did.
Right.
Weather and field conditions definitely played a part, especially in that Redskins game.
Boy, you know what? There must be 50 articles out there talking about complaints about the field. And, Shanahan was, Shanahan said two completely bootlicking things this week, or at least cover his own butt things.
Okay.
One is he was saying, well, no one can expect at this point in the season to play on a perfect field. It's like, dude.
That's why they invented sod.
Yes.
It's literally why they invented sod.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. That field was bad before the first set of cleats got on the field.
Oh, it was just painted on. The green was painted over mud. Every time from the very first, I showed this to you in replays. We played part of the game. From the first play at the line of scrimmage, you could see people kicking up dirt and mud.
Right.
Every step.
Yeah.
People couldn't cut. And listen, you got a gimpy quarterback.
I know.
You want to give him the best footing possible. And if you want to run the ball for a living and win games, you want the best field possible.
Now, by the way, got to give John some lovin's here for picking 4 out of 4. I only got 2 out of 4 here. So,
any crowds? Do I get crowds?
Crowds, yes. I'll find some crowds to stick back there.
Outstanding. Yes.
Weren't surprised by the Cincinnati-Houston outcome.
No, I mean, I felt that Cincinnati had been starting to play. I think they played as hard as they could, but the Texans definitely just eventually ground that game out. And I'm not very particularly surprised by that.
Yeah, I kind of felt, and there's an article up on the Sportishness website, I kind of felt like the story of last weekend's football was all about which team could mount the most pressure from their defensive line.
Fair enough.
And in this particular case, Houston managed to put enough pressure on Dalton that they kept Dalton off balance.
Yep.
I think Dalton's a better quarterback than that. There were a lot of things that broke down for Cincinnati in that game. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, that win for Houston was as close to a loss as a win could be. Because at this point in the season, they should be doing better.
If the Bengals receivers had shown up, there were 2 plays that there was obviously the one overthrow in the end zone late that would have given them the lead. That would have been great for them.
Right.
But there was a play where the receiver went up. Was it Green?
I think it was. Yeah.
I think it was Green
Ellis or whatever.
So Green goes up and just lets the ball go through his hands.
Right.
It's the playoffs. You got to catch those every time, or you're going to lose the game.
You have to catch those. That's what you do in the playoffs.
Then the last series of the game, they go for it on 4th down. It's 2 tight end formation to the left. The slot receiver gets the ball short, basically on a naked bubble, and Green goes up, and it's clear that he is supposed to go out there and block that first guy to give the ball carrier the chance to convert the first down, and he couldn't be bothered.
Right.
He just kind of ran up to the guy and just kind of skittered off, and the guy made the tackle short. They turned the ball over. They lose the game. The Texans should have lost the game if the Bengals had even cared to play the game.
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't seem like they really were all that interested in being in the playoffs.
Well, that receiver, Green Ellis, whatever his name is, he definitely seemed to be channeling the spirit of Terrell Owens on that one. I really only have one thing to say about the Minnesota-Green Bay game, and that is that it is arguably one of the most boring playoff games I've ever seen. Indianapolis and Baltimore.
I'm not terribly surprised by that result.
Yeah.
Actually, it really all depended on Ray Lewis, I thought. If Ray Lewis came out and contributed to the game, then the defense would stiffen up, and I didn't think the Colts had terribly much of a chance. Lewis came out. He was the leading tackler. He made a lot of contributions. He almost had a pick. I believe he had a sack or a half sack. So Ray Lewis is back, and the Colts just never really had a chance. Same problem again. Rookie quarterback holding on to the ball too long. Receivers weren't springing open.
I saw a whole lot of this. from Andrew Luck. You know, as he was going back, he was like patting the ball.
Right.
I mean, he was a nervous boy. But again, you know, Baltimore, I think the biggest effect that Ray Lewis had for Baltimore was they kind of figured that Ray Lewis had the center of the field. You know, that he had that taken care of, which I think allowed them to have their defensive front be a little bit more aggressive than they'd been, you know, in their 2-3 slide at the end of the season.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I thought Indianapolis was going to walk away with that one. They didn't, and well, there you have it. Now, Seattle and Washington.
Paid $100,000 to sod the field, you probably would have won that game.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
So the first game of the weekend is going to be Baltimore at Denver.
Okay.
I know. That of course is the game that John and I are just all Twitter pated about seeing.
Absolutely.
So. Yes.
Hello, number one.
Well, you know, you made a pretty big point, and I was trying to be clever in my picks last week, but you made a big point of, you know, home field advantage. And boy, I tell you what, there are some serious home field advantages developing this week. I mean, for one, they're expecting lows of 15 degrees at Mile High Stadium.
Football weather.
Yes, football weather. Some nice, very chilly. I mean, the best the weather could get is 30 degrees, and it's going to get worse from there.
Right.
Also, of course, the altitude. You know, Baltimore doesn't play up at this altitude. That's probably our best kept non-secret, right? And then, of course, the crowd noise. You know, who loves trying to play against endless incompletes?
Sure. Well, you know, obviously, it's this place. The stadium was built to be loud, and as a visiting team, you can't make audibles. Everything has to be hand signal.
Right.
And that's an enormous advantage for the home team.
It is. It is. Yeah, especially in our barn. So Flacco, of course, man, last week, he only completed 12 out of 23 passes. 12 out of 23. And you know what? Okay, when he did manage to complete some passes, they were for some big yards. I think he had one where there was like 50 yards in the air. It was a 60-yard, pass. But then the rest, I mean, like all the bread and butter plays, he couldn't seem to complete a pass. So, boy, you know, I would hate to be Baltimore right now and having to rely on this guy because you just don't know from play to play, day to day, week to week who he's going to be.
Sure. Joe Flacco's notoriously inconsistent, and that's what makes his bread and butter. He does manage to complete the long pass enough that people go, oh, he could be something.
Right.
But you're right. His mid-range passing game is pretty inconsistent week to week. I think the Broncos have a real opportunity with the edge rushers they have right now to get in his face, make him make some bad decisions.
Right.
Crowd noise making it harder for him to change blocking assignments and receiver routes. And miscommunications might add up to one extra turnover a game. And maybe a couple penalties that kill drives. And those little tiny things stack up just enough that if Joe Flacco is inconsistent, this could be a pretty ugly game.
Well, now, you know, Joe Flacco is kind of a fumblekins there. As I remember it, he actually has more fumbles than he does interceptions. But, ball control is an issue. And, boy, and ball control was an issue, back 4 or 5 weeks ago when, or 3 or 4 weeks ago, actually, when the Broncos played Baltimore.
Yes.
There were some pretty decisive plays
there.
There
were some problems last weekend. Fumbles and penalties almost killed the Ravens in spite of themselves.
Yeah. Well, bottom line is they've got to play a clean game, and they probably aren't, and that's going to kill them.
Okay.
I think that the addition of Ray Lewis, like I mentioned, you know, the certainty that is given that he's going to control the middle of the field, I think that the Broncos are going to have to scheme against a kind of high-pressure defensive front from Baltimore. Denver has not necessarily done a great job against that this year. So I do have some worries that if they can mount a lot of pressure, they may be able to get Manning off his game. On the other hand, though, you and I both know that Manning's only going to put up with that so much, and then there's going to be some adjustments, and they're going to burn them with some play action, some slants, some other things that are going to, keep them back on their heels some.
I agree. Baltimore traditionally has a very aggressive defense.
Right.
Peyton Manning generally eats those up for lunch.
Right.
He doesn't lose to the Ravens because the Ravens style of defense plays right into his hands. Mm-hmm. The more people you send at Peyton Manning, the less people are covering his receivers, and it makes it easier for him. We read that article about the dig and the dag plays this week. It's
right.
Pretty classic stuff. I think the the temperature really isn't, I don't think, going to be a huge factor, because you know who's bad in low temperature games? Peyton Manning.
Yeah, although he's wearing the glove.
He's wearing the glove. So
and you know what? Apparently, a couple of Denver Post sports writers have been saying that it looks like the gloves have actually taken some wobble out of his pass.
Oh, okay. Glovegate. Oh, I can't wait to start talking about that next week.
Yeah, Glovegate.
Ultimately, I think this game comes down to who can run the ball.
Yeah.
If Denver can run and have success running in the middle areas, the A-B gap kind of stuff, force the linebackers up, Denver's going to slaughter the ball, is going to have its way with the Baltimore defense, even with Ray Lewis. Also, how they treat Tammy,
right,
and how well Tammy can get off the line to be that option receiver, I think will dictate how the secondary does against the Broncos. Flip side, I think Denver has to respect the possibility of the pass, but I think they have the opportunity to stack the run and see if they can stop Rice. So basically, the team that eventually grinds out that 100, 125 yards is probably going to be the team that walks away with that one.
Well, there is no doubt that our secondary has been pretty amazing this year. I mean, Champ Bailey, of course, but, also Carter and Raheem Moore. I mean, we've got a pretty solid secondary. So, the story for the Denver's defense all year has been kind of a bend, don't break philosophy.
Sure.
And so we may give up a 50-yard play, but I don't think we're going to be giving up a lot of points.
No, I've not been impressed with Baltimore's offensive schemes this year. I think Denver is in a comfort zone against them. And I think the first time we played a few weeks ago, I think that was pretty evident.
Yeah.
Because Ray Lewis doesn't play offense.
Right.
For the Ravens. So I think our defense also matches up pretty well. So this should be a reasonably straightforward game for the Broncos if they come prepared and ready to play.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we just outmatch them on all the little things that add up to the victory. Plus home field advantage, I think, just tilts it over for them.
I'm feeling a little generous, so I pick. I mean, we both picked Denver, clearly, right?
Yes.
But I'm putting the score at 34-21. I'm feeling generous with Baltimore being able to squeak out 3 touches.
Oh, okay. I'm doing 32-21.
32-21. Gotcha. Okay, so we're right in there.
Yeah.
And of course, the odds makers have a 10-point spread, so I think it's pretty clear what the odds makers think is going to happen. Well, let's talk about Green Bay and San Francisco as the next game.
Okay. This game, I think, is going to be a grindy game. They played early on. I think they played. I think they played week 1.
Yeah.
And San Francisco won that game, but San Francisco on offense is a very different team than when they started the season.
Well, yeah, obviously.
And Green Bay has managed to pick their game up. The offense looked very shaky early on, and I think they've done nothing but get better game after game. I think this game ultimately is a grindy game. I think Kaepernick and Rodgers will both find the opportunities to both pass and run the ball down the field. At the end of the day, I think this game is going to be decided by the experience of the quarterback. I think the teams are pretty much matched across the board. Defensively, San Francisco is a little bit better. Offensively, Green Bay is a little bit better. But at the end of the day, the quarterback play, because the quarterback holds the ball half the game on each side, is, I think, what makes the difference. I think Aaron Rodgers has that extra bit of talent, and he's got the experience. And he's got that little bit of extra it that I think puts him over. I'm thinking 27-21. 27-21. So it'll be a home field upset for the 49ers.
Well, I actually have a slightly different narrative on this one. Yeah, I actually think San Francisco is going to come out ahead. For one, Candlestick Park is a hard place to play.
Absolutely.
And
it's not as bad as it used to be when the field would be half underwater at high tide.
Yeah,
they fixed that problem.
They finally learned how to drain the field.
Yes, but still.
But you know what? I think actually, I think you're right about quarterbacks making a difference. But I think that it's going to be the interaction of quarterback and defense. And in this case, I think that Kaepernick, with his ability to run and kind of, maybe keep a drive alive with, a little quarterback sneak or with his mobility, and doing that consistently through the game, and Green Bay not necessarily having a good response to that to contain him, I think Kaepernick might actually win out on this one.
Okay. What are you thinking on the point spread? I'm kind of curious.
I'm thinking actually it's going to be a fairly low-scoring game because both teams have pretty good defenses, right? I'm thinking 23-13.
Okay.
Of course, the odds makers have a 3-point spread, and they're calling for 44 points. In the over/under. I
think both teams can generate scores. Both our scores are, you're saying 3 to 4 scores. You're saying 5 scores total.
Yeah.
I'm saying 6 scores total, 6 or 7 scores over the course of dozens of drives. That doesn't seem unreasonable for both these teams.
Yeah.
Well,
there's another thing too. I find it so hard to diagnose what the state of Green Bay is from that Vikings game, because the Vikings were so ridiculously pitiful. I mean, it was like a an NFL team going against a high school team.
Sure.
And so, the fact of the matter is, there were some points where Green Bay, was not able to sustain a drive, where they were handed 3 and outs by the Vikings defense. And so it kind of weakens my confidence. Plus, Green Bay didn't score at all in the fourth quarter. And by that point, the Vikings had really thrown the game in.
Yeah. Well, it's a cold, last week's game, we're talking about the home field advantage. Obviously, 49ers have, again, a great stadium, great fans.
Right.
That's definitely a plus for them. Last week, that was a cold weather game. Cold weather football is a whole different kettle of fish. The ball's hard, it's hard to grip, hard to catch, hard to kick. So,
and yet, the field was still in better shape in Green Bay than it was in Washington.
My yard is in better shape than Washington. This is going to be San Francisco. It's the winter out there. They'll be cold, potentially a little rainy, but it's not Green Bay and Wisconsin in the winter.
Exactly.
So I don't think this is a case where the temperature plays any difference at all. The field conditions could definitely be poor, but Green Bay just played a game on a frozen field with frozen football. So I think they'll have an opportunity to show what they can do a little better this week.
All right. Well, it's without a doubt going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I think this is 2 offensive teams that can really rack up points when they get going. So it might boil down to who can just slow down the other team. Right. I think there's more opportunity to score than you, so that would be interesting. So okay.
Let's shift over to the first game on Sunday, which is going to be Seattle and Atlanta. And, of course, boy, I totally see Seattle eating them for lunch.
Yeah, I don't think the Falcons have a legitimate chance here. They are the weak sister of the playoffs in my mind, both conferences.
A paper tiger, really. I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at one of the statistics I ran earlier on last week was how many teams are in the playoffs that played other playoff teams and what their records were, to kind of get a feel for, hey, if you're playing an elite team, how well do you do?
Right.
The Falcons have by far played the least number of other playoff teams. Mm-hmm. 1 game. It was against the Washington Redskins. They did manage to win it, but everybody else has 3, 5, 4, 7 games even against other teams that were in the playoffs at the start of the series.
Right.
The Falcons have stumbled in the last couple of weeks getting into the playoffs. Now you can say, well, hey, they didn't have anything to play for, and that's absolutely true. But I don't have any confidence in their ability to play against big teams and win those games.
Right.
They've had a really soft schedule this year, and lucky for them.
Right.
But I think this is where a hungry Seahawks team that has had to play their hearts out just to get to the tournament and had to play an incredible game against the Washington Redskins to advance.
Right.
The Seahawks have sharpened all of the knives, and they're ready to do battle.
They are.
And the Falcons, I'm not sure if they believe in themselves. You got a great record, but against who?
Well, I mean, one big question mark over Atlanta is the fact that, they lost 2 out of their last 5 games, and against Tampa Bay and Carolina. I mean, Carolina, come on, last game of the season. Blah, 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 you sat starters, blah.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
But it's still Carolina.
It's still Carolina. I mean, really.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that Atlanta has a problem with being a pretty one-sided team. I think that they average only about 81 yards of rushing offense, compared to the Seahawks, where they have about 170 yards passing and about 150 yards rushing per game. So a really balanced, balanced game. I don't really see how Atlanta's defense is going to be able to put much of a containment on Seattle. And even if they do, they may only contain one side and not the other. And it seems like Seattle can have success, with either rush or pass.
And Seattle's defense has been great this year. They got a shutdown corner that nobody throws the ball at anymore.
No doubt.
I think that the Seattle defense shuts them down. Their offense does well. They win this game 24-10 going away.
Yeah, I'm looking at 28-21 Seattle.
Okay.
And, the funny thing is the pundits have this, as being a pretty close game. I mean, they're only allowing a 3-point spread on this. I don't know about that. Now, our final game is going to be one that is very, very important to us as Broncos fans, and that is Houston playing at New England. Now, need we remind the audience of how thoroughly the Patriots vivisected the Texans, back a few weeks ago?
42-14.
42-14. And you know what? That score wasn't even close. I mean, they actually let up on the gas. The Patriots did.
That score was not indicative of how badly the Patriots beat them up.
Yeah. And interestingly, too, that seemed to mark the slide, the end of the season slide for the Texans.
Well, when they played each other, the Patriots were trying to make a move to win their division and get in the playoffs, and that was the team that they had to knock off. And we after that game, we talked about this on camera, that we felt that was Belichick saying, "Watch out,
right?
That we're coming up, and yeah, the Texans are number one, but they're not." And it turned out they weren't. They're the number 3 team in the seeding order.
Well, I tell you what. To me, the most important moment that I have seen related to this game is last week when Houston was playing against Cincinnati. There was a moment where Matt Schaub completed a pass where he was kind of forcing the ball in on some tight coverage. And he was standing there like this, like he was praying. And then when he completed the pass, he went...
That's confidence.
Yeah. Somebody sucked the mojo right out of his spine about 5 weeks ago. And I saw nothing in last week's game to tell me that Matt Schaub is on the mental mend.
No, I don't want to take away from the Texans completely. They're a Kubiak-led team. Kubiak's a great coach. He's done a great job down there. They're a team on the move. In a couple of years, when they finish filling out the roster in the places that they need the gap in, then I think they'll be a more formidable team. They had a great run this year.
They did,
and I give them, I give them all due credit. But they're playing the New England Patriots in the playoffs, and the New England Patriots in the playoffs. Here's what I got for notes on this game: New England, New England, New England.
Right.
They already showed what they're going to do to the Texans, and I don't think the Texans have an answer.
Well, the other thing too, of course, is everybody wants to talk about A.J. Watt, and you know what? There was only one, I thought, moment of brilliance in that game last week. And that was when he tipped a pass, did his A.J. Watt thing, tipped a pass, and then went.
Yes.
But you know what? I don't know if that was brilliance so much as arrogance. In the last 3 weeks, I've actually had a chance to catch quite a bit of, Texans football. And I really haven't been seeing a lot of A.J., Watt. So I don't know that they can count on him.
Please don't beat us up.
Right.
Beat him up. Beat him up.
Right.
He's a big guy.
But here's another thing too, though, that everybody needs to have in their brainhousing group here, and that is that their 22 starters from Week 1 for New England are still on the roster, not on injured reserve, are still on the roster, and they are all listed as possible for this weekend's game. And and it looks like I was trying to confirm this before we came to this set, but I do believe that both Hernandez and Gronkowski are going to be in the field together. And boy, that just spells pure team mess for everybody trying to play with them.
Right,
because those two guys are ridiculous.
Yeah, they've been having a phenomenal couple seasons. This is, of all the games that we played this week, this is one in which the home field advantage, not just the crowd, but the actual field conditions and temperature, I think will play the biggest difference. New England plays in cold and snowy weather, and the Texans do not.
Yeah.
So this is a warm weather team going to the home of a cold weather team, and a stadium in which the Patriots don't generally lose at all, much less in the playoffs. I have the Patriots on this one, 42 to 10.
42 to 10.
I was debating 55 to 10, but I didn't want to bring back memories for you of the old Broncos 49ers thing. So I scaled that down.
Let us never mention that San Francisco-Denver game again. Yeah. Well, I have New England winning at 35 to 20. And I have to say, actually, I could see conditions under which the Texans might not get more than 6 points, actually. I mean, it really depends. The one weakness that I think everyone would agree that New England has is their defense is not the best ever.
I agree.
So, it could be that, the defense is the thing that makes the difference here. But I don't see any condition under which Houston's going to win. Well, I don't know what else to say except that I wish it were Saturday already.
Yes.
And God knows I'm not going to get anything done this whole weekend because I'm going to be glued to the tube watching these games. So I don't have anything else. How about you?
Nothing.
All right. Well, folks, have a great weekend watching football. We're going to have a great old time. I'm John. John?
Enjoy good football.
Yes.
I'm going to say that even when football season's over.
That's right. Enjoy good football.
All right, guys. Have a good one.